October the 17th, the year of our Lord 2023. So we are here with staff, with council members, with those who are running, and so we're ready for action. All right, why don't you stand and let's do the Pledge of Allegiance and the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Almighty God, indivisible's pretty strong language, given the way us humans work things out. Thank goodness, oh Lord, you are indivisible and from us when it comes to getting stuff done. So thank you for your presence tonight. Thank you for all those who are present here, and bless us as we go about the business of the town of Angier. Amen. Okay, we need to approve the agenda. Is I believe you wanted to add
Yes, we
an
need
item.
to do an amendment and talk about maybe doing an amendment for the senior center and the food pantry. It was brought to our attention that they have not been allocated money like we've done every previous year. So we need to go ahead and see what we can do about that and get that approved to be put out
Okay.
immediately.
Would you suggest that we add that as
To
item
number
2B?
Well, that's fine.
As part of the budget considerations? Is that
Yes,
okay,
2B.
Madam Town Manager?
Is that okay?
Okay, yeah. All right. With that amendment, are there any other amendments or any other changes? If not, is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
I make a motion that we approve the agenda as amended.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, raise your right hand. It's unanimous. All right. Okay. We have the privilege of having Brother Bill Dreisler online with us. Bill, I understand with all your technical ability, there wasn't much you could do with that car.
No, other than I'm going to have to buy a new transmission, but that's not a.
Oh,
not a
dear.
happy thing. I apologize for not being able to.
Well, that's understandable. Without a good transmission, you can't go. So, all right. So, I understand you're going to give us a broad discussion about the infrastructure update.
Yes, sir. The manager asked me.
Can y'all hear out there?
Can I update
Okay.
the board on the schedules of the three major infrastructure projects. So I'll start with probably with the biggest one, and that is our Junior Road elevated tanks. That project, we
They said
awarded
they
the
could.
contract back in August last year. The original schedule had us going to bid in September of this year. Clearly, we're far past that schedule. There were several issues that came up during the project with delay. The soil borings had to be put on delay while we made a decision on the tank style. But in all honesty, I don't believe that was a critical path item. So that was an internal delay on the project, but I don't believe it was really a factor in terms of where we're at now. There was two key critical path issues that I'll go over with you. But that was one of our early delays. The scope of the project, we did an initial study phase to start the project. And we actually have 5 sites that all involve some level of design and plan preparation. So we have obviously the tank site. We also have the Kennebec Church Road tank site. The piping is going to have to be modified, and we're going to be taking the booster station that was installed years ago initially, if you recall, to bolster the pressures at Johnson's Landing, and it was designed to be converted to a booster station to fill the Kennebec tank when that was installed, which is what it does now. But now that we're going to have a new booster station and we're going to go back to one pressure level, that booster station will be taken offline. So there's work and survey work and design work that's being done around the Kennebec Church Road tank site just to some piping. We also have our booster station, which is going to be located basically at the corner of Tippett Road and Highway 210. That'll be the main booster station that charges both of our new tanks, the Kennebec Church Road tank and this new Jenny Road tank.
Well, not exactly at the intersection, right?
No, well, the actual station is pulled back up Tippett Road a little bit. However, the connection point's right there at the intersection.
Okay.
Connect to the distribution system. And we also have, and we're going to bid these so that we have options on what we award and don't award. But we're including the demolition of the Jenny Road standpipe as a part of the scope of work, and we're including the demolition of the Dora Street tank as part of the scope. So as I said, there's design and specs that are being prepared at all 5 of those locations. That was a little more than we had anticipated when we began because we didn't have this study phase that our consultant did, as I said, at the very beginning. But to get to the nuts and bolts of where we're at right now in terms of our anticipated bid date for this project, 2 key factors, at least from my perspective. The first and probably the most foremost is the booster station. We identified a site for the booster station, and through the study phase, being in that we needed to connect somewhere in that Tippett Road, Highway 210 location to our distribution system. Just from the hydraulics of our overall system, that was where we needed to be. We found the property in February of this year and began moving forward with the attempt to acquire the easements and or a piece of or a parcel separated to locate the booster station. That process ended up, for better or for worse, took 7 months. So it wasn't until mid-July that we actually acquired the easements for the booster station location. And why that's critical is a lot of the key design, the pipe sizing, the horsepower for the motor, the electrical design, none of that could be started until our consultant knew where we were going to be connecting to our distribution system. So in essence, in terms of some of the real nuts and bolts of the design of this project, he wasn't authorized to begin until the end of July of this year. So August, September, and this part of October, the bulk of the design work in terms of the real nuts and bolts, as I said, the electrical, the pipe sizing, the fittings, the valves, that's been done over the last 8-10 weeks. And I talked to our consultant, I talked to him Friday, I talked to him again on Monday, and he has assured me that we will be submitting the public water supply on the initial permit application no later than November 1st. Potentially before then, but by November 1st. So we're within a couple of weeks of wrapping up the design phase and making the submittal. Well, when we started the project back in August of last year, one area that we weren't aware of, and I don't think anybody was at the time, was how the state was going to handle the management of these ARP funds that were appropriated through the state budget. And because there are so many projects and there was so much money that went out to so many municipalities, in our coordination with the state, which is on a regular basis in terms of the status of these projects, because we have milestone dates that we have to meet, and obviously we have a December 31st, 2026 deadline legislative deadline to have requested our final reimbursement for any of the monies they received in 2021 or 2022 as appropriated ARPA funds. So we coordinate with them regularly, and they have informed us or asked us, as we're looking at milestones and project schedules, that we include 3 to 5 months permit process with the state. So this, when we submit November 1 for the Jenny elevated tank, we'll be submitting to Public Water Supply. They'll do a review and provide comments. We have to get through that review process, and when Public Water Supply is satisfied, we then submit to the Division of Water Infrastructure. So basically, two different agencies within DEQ looking at the same project. Now, Public Water Supply is going to be the main reviewer in terms of comments. DWI is more going to be looking at the project to make sure that it complied with all of the ARP funding requirements and that they're satisfied with the project. So that review time will be less. Public Water Supply is telling us, maybe 3 or 4 months. DWI, maybe a month because of the different review times. Well, typically that's about 60 days, not 3 to 5 months. So that pushed out our anticipated bid date. So as we stand, we're looking at May of next year to be able to bid the project if it takes as long as we anticipate it might through the permit process. Now that's always, we can always be hopeful. If that's not 4 months or 5 months, it might be 2 or 3, and then we've gained 2 months. So we'll certainly keep our coordination up with the state, with DWI, and with Public Water Supply. But that's where we're at right now. So we're looking at a project completion, and again, this is estimating, issues with supplies. So we're trying to be very conservative. We're looking at 19 months from the bid date, because that's going to take 2 or 3 months before we actually get a contractor mobilized, the completion of construction. In talking with our consultant, we're hopeful that's going to be less than that, maybe 3 or 4 months less than that, but we want to look at the worst case scenario. So we're looking at no later than a December 2025 completion date for the project. And I guess if there's any questions, that's just I know we're about 8 or 9 months beyond where we had hoped to be, but that's where we are.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Yeah.
And I can assure the Mr. Mayor and the board that from the staff standpoint, we coordinate on a very regular basis with our design consultant to try and keep this project moving forward.
Good. Is the booster going to be on the town side or the other side of Tippett Road?
It's going to be on the north side.
The northeast side?
Or
Towards
Andrew.
Towards Andrew. That's what I was asking. Okay. That's good. That's good. Glad that worked out. Any other questions or comments? Madam Manager, you have anything to add?
I don't, but if anyone has specific questions about the project, they can email me, and my email address is located on the website.
Okay. Well,
the
this is
core system, the 8.1 miles of water line replacement project, that is on schedule right now. And that is a massive undertaking, as you might assume, replacing over 8 miles of water line in our downtown area. We knew that was going to be close to a year-long survey effort, and in talking with our consultant, we believe we're about 60% complete with all of the location survey. So just as a note, where we're looking at right now is a permit submittal date, maybe sometime in June of 2024, beginning construction in March, and project completion in September of 2026. These schedules on this project could potentially change. I think I've discussed this, or we've discussed this with y'all in the past. given the scope of this particular project, we're going to break the bid package will be broken up into key sections that we'll prioritize. And so we'll have bid prices, maybe 3 different bid prices on 3 different areas that add up to that 8.1 miles of water line. And if the cost comes in significantly above where our funding level is, we'll have the option of saying, okay, we'll do part 1 and part 2 and hold off on part 3. So if that's the case, that we don't do all 8.1 miles based on funding, then obviously the completion date would be sooner.
You still think without, even with the additional $9 million from the state, that we could be close to the edge?
Well, I tell you, with pipes these days and water line projects and sewer projects, it's almost scary to try and anticipate cost. So we're just trying to have a plan in place. Hopefully by the time we go, maybe the market will have settled down, maybe the chain will be better, and the cost will come down. We're just trying to have a game plan in place for the what if.
Is the sewer system downtown in fairly good shape?
Boy, that's a tough question. We have a lot of old terracotta sanitary sewer plant that at some point in time is going to have to be addressed.
Let me ask a silly question.
It is currently functioning, so
Okay.
we're not under any issues other than we've identified, as you're aware, several areas for line replacement or slip lining and manhole rehab that are some of our worst inflow and infiltration areas. So we know where those are. It's just a matter of finding the funding.
Let me ask a silly question, but I've been wondering why you got the earth dug up and the traffic diverted. Is there any advantage to at least doing that 1 block or so of downtown in the sewer replacement?
Potentially. I think that's something that Jimmy brought up and that we'll certainly look at considering.
Okay. Anything else?
On the stormwater project that was funded, the South Broad Street culvert replacement, that project has been on hold for a little while. When we were in the initial phases of the project, it was determined that CSX owned a parcel that we were going to need an easement for additional right-of-way. So as soon as that was identified, I've been working with CSX on some other projects over the last few years, so I know their process, and it's painful and lengthy, but I know their process. So as soon as we identified that they were listed as the property owner, I logged into the CSX real estate portal and I put in a property acquisition inquiry and started that process. It probably took 2.5 months to get a response from them. That's fairly typical with CSX. But when we finally got back, CSX's determination was that they no longer own the property. They had reverted it back to the adjacent property owners. If you pull up GIS, it's listed as CSX Realty owning the property. So we had our local attorney do some deed research, title search, and we believe that is the case. Jimmy Cook, I guess he's probably there. Jimmy has been working to make contact with the property owners to start a discussion on some right-of-way that we will need to acquire to complete this project. So we didn't want our consultants spending money on a design that might change based on property acquisition. So we're hopeful that we'll get this resolved in the next few weeks. And this isn't a lengthy project. If the permit time, once we make a determination and we're able to know that we have the right-of-way or permanent drainage easement that we need to complete the project, I would say we're not looking at no more than 2 to 3 months to have a permit set ready to submit to the state. So, if we're looking at a 3 or 4 month permit time for this project as well, because construction time's only going to probably be 3 months.
Okay. Well, Dan, isn't it normal?
Not a lengthy project.
Excuse me.
And this is one that you know, the CSX property has put that project in a little bit of, as I said, a delay. However, in terms of the December 31st, 2026 deadline, that's not an issue. I'm fully confident this project will be completed and operational in 2024.
Good. Okay. Normally, Dan, when they abandon a railroad, it reverts to the adjacent landowners, right?
That's right. Yeah, any street that it gets abandoned by the town goes 50-50 to the adjoining tracts.
Okay. All right. Sounds like you're on the right track. So, good enough. Anything else?
No, sir, that's what I've got, unless there's any other questions.
Any questions?
Again, I apologize I couldn't be there tonight.
Yes, Dan. Sorry, I got Dan. After he said Dan, I got Dan on my mind. I'm just checking, Bill, with these deadlines that I'm hearing from you. You're not planning on retiring anytime soon, are you?
No.
Okay.
No, I
Guys.
got a transmission to pay for. I got to
All right. Don't think about doing that or leaving us because you got a lot of irons in the fire, bud.
Right
And
on.
thank you.
What I do, and I love working with the town. So that's not on my agenda for a while.
And we thank once again our representatives in the state legislature and the state for giving us almost $20 million to work with and updating what has been around for, 80 years? So, thank you. Thank you, Bill, for your report. Any further questions or anything? Okay, we'll let you go.
Y'all have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Hans, we've got a budget amendment, and then we need to consider adding the extra money for the two recipients in the budget. So,
Well, this is an exciting budget amendment. This is going to be very interesting. We're going to first focus on the 10 fund. So with this budget amendment, there are a couple funds that are being hit. So, but the 10 fund, we sold some assets, a tractor and dump truck. So that revenue we had received through Gov Deals, and therefore, we didn't anticipate that revenue, but it came in. So we just need to increase that revenue line and, of course, increase the associated expenditure line within for Public Works to go ahead and make purchase. That's one piece of the budget amendment. Last fiscal year, we did not complete a project, and no doubt, we're very familiar with this, how this works and so forth. And that is that it's the Lillington Street parking lot behind Napper Tandy's. As it goes, you budget for it, a lot of things take place, you don't complete that. So when you don't spend the money, that falls into fund balance. So because it's in fund balance, we are basically just pulling back out of fund balance, taking from the revenue line, or essentially fund balance appropriated, increasing that revenue line, and then thereby increasing the expenditure line necessary to complete this this project. So hopefully we'll complete it this fiscal year. That would be really good.
it's looking good so
I
far.
think we're close.
Good, good. Okay. All right. Well, so now before we get into the water sewer fund, the 30 fund, we're going to go ahead and jump into the 38 fund, or what is the Pump Station 6 and Force Main Fund, that fund. That fund, it needs to represent the amount of money that will be in its own bank account. And actually, there is a separate bank account for this fund. Won't go into the details, minutia and whatnot, but so on, but yes. So, this fund, we need to decrease, and so this budget amendment, you can see, and you'll see that there's a decrease from the beginning budget amount to, of course, what we are ending up with. We're decreasing it, so that it'll match how much is gonna be in there. Now, of course, the question is, okay, what's in there right now? Not enough. So jumping back to the other part of the budget amendment, we're pulling from the 30 fund, the water sewer fund. We're pulling from there $1.2 million. We're taking it from the water sewer fund balance, and we're going to basically put it into this force main fund, basically separate bank account, so that there's a cash flow. And in essence, that is what this budget amendment is about.
What happens to the money from the state? Does that reimburse that, or?
That's something that we, I think, all need to ponder on, is how we ensure or even ascertain where we grab the money from. Because we do not want the water sewer fund to, by the end of the fiscal year, be at a 1.2 million deficit or thereabouts. I mean, that would be, we've never had that.
Well, I agree, yeah.
There's just no way.
But you're anticipating that some of the other funds will be used to bring this back up to,
That is what we should be set to task.
okay,
The town manager and the department heads, we need to figure out how to resolve this, what money that we can use. And even with all of the projects that are going on, what is available? We need to really project out, forecast out, and understand where we can get this money from, ultimately to, for lack of better words, reimburse the water sewer fund.
okay.
So, Mayor and Commissioners, I'm not clear on the recent appropriation of $9 million. I'm not clear yet as to if that is going to be directly sent to the town for us to manage, or if that's going to be a reimbursement style grant like the projects that Bill was speaking about earlier. So once I find out some more information, I will certainly pass it along to you.
At any rate, the money's there.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any questions?
We've got our work cut out for us.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Item 2B. Apparently we traditionally have given money to two local efforts, and it's been left out of the budget given all the changes we've gone through. So is there a motion that we amend the budget to restore those items?
Are we including that into this budget amendment here? Or are we dealing with?
Be a separate budget amendment.
That's what I
Separate
thought.
budget amendment.
But we put
was-
it as a
it was a
subpart of
budget
this
issue.
discussion because it's about the budget.
But we're
Yeah,
gonna.
it was a budget discussion.
I
so-
noticed. I saw it put on there. My question is: are we voting on all of this together and not as separate items?
You would probably want to vote on as separate items.
So we need to do
Separate,
that
okay.
before we move on to this.
That's
Okay,
probably a
so-
good idea.
That is good.
So is there a motion first that we do the budget amendments then?
Yes, I make a motion that we approve budget amendment number 3.
Okay, any discussion? That makes more sense. Thank you. All in favor of that motion, please raise your hand. It's unanimous. All right.
And just to
consideration-
clarify, what you'll probably need to do is, if you vote to include this as a budget amendment, have a formal budget amendment brought back to you at the next meeting for approval, which could go on consent.
Okay, okay. Makes sense. So you want to remake your motion?
Can we? I have some questions just really quickly. Can we get a record of what I remember doing this. What did we do? Where did the money and where did it come from before?
I was going to say, should we have a little background?
I would
Certainly.
love that.
Okay, so I
Although I was here.
I was digging into the budget. So the last time that the town donated to the Anger Food Pantry was in fiscal year 1819, and that was for $1,000. The
$8,000.
$8,000.
You said 4,000. I was
oh
just being sure it didn't mean 4,000.
no
Okay.
And that was to the
1,000.
Atta go. Okay.
The donation to the Anger Senior Center was last done in the same fiscal year, 1819, for $1,500, $1,500. And it does not appear that we have donated to the chamber in some time since 2019.
Well, we have an agreement with the changer and a quid pro quo type exchange, so I think that's probably covered.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we did discuss that, and because we do trade out in other things for them in lieu of,
Okay.
that was
Right.
we were considering a wash. So you're saying once again that we did $1,000 to the food pantry,
That's correct. And
And
1,500
to
to
the
the
senior
Citizens Center Club.
organization.
Yes.
One of the historical backdrops to the food pantry is that obviously they were in the town business building that is now the hardware store,
Mm-hmm.
and we kind of asked them to move over to the church. So there was a feeling that we ought to support them. you know.
Well, because and also they had free use of the space, and by moving to Anthem, they had to pay rent over
Right.
there. So we felt badly about having to put them out, but we certainly wanted to see the pantry continue in town. It was greatly needed.
Okay, so now is there a motion? In the amount of 1,500 and 1,000. Okay. Any further discussion on that? Or-
We will prepare that and put it on the consent agenda for the next meeting.
Good enough. Okay, well, let's at least pass the motion. Well, do we need to pass a motion now, or is it just a recommendation?
If I think right now it can be a consensus of the board for that to be brought for
All
consideration
consenting?
at the next
Yeah,
meeting.
I think we are.
Consenting,
Okay.
yes.
All right. So let it be done. Okay. Item 3, the street closure for a trunk or treat. Greasy.
Good evening. So we're asking for the approval of closing Willow Street from Williams to Wimberley Road. I've put a map on your desks so you're familiar with the road that is in question. All the residents, Chief Thompson and his staff have worked that street, Willow Street, and have contacted every resident on the street and have advised them of closure, and all the response from the residents have been positive, and the parking will be on the curb side of the street where the lake is and not in the yards. We're going to put signs up that says do not park on the grass. And the residents were pleased that the situation was being controlled instead of just, people just pulling in their yards and parking where they're not wanted to.
What are the times of the
Um,
closure?
They're going to close from 3 until 9.
Okay. I assume that will leave some space to get around the cars.
There will
To
be
get
a
into-
lane to be able to pull through, there'll just be, one side of the street will be for parking, and then there'll be a lane available to drive through.
Turn on. When you, I'm still a little confused with this. I get where it is. So are you telling me at 3:00 is when they'll barricade the road? But you're telling me that there will be parking along the lake. So what is that? They're going to let enough cars in, and once those spaces are gone, nobody else comes in? Is that how that works? I mean, when we say road closure,
People that live there, of course.
yeah, the road, that's why we have the one lane that would still be open. But they would, at 3:00, there may be, let cars in there to park along that strip. And then once it is filled,
Well, I think
no
they'll-
more traffic is in there. Is that what we're saying?
Until somebody pulls out?
Right, when somebody pulls out, they'll be communicating as far as.
I was going to say,
getting
they're not going to know
spaces.
somebody's pulled out until an officer at the other end
Well,
says
there's an
there's room.
officer at each end, right?
Right, and there will be officers where, the roads tee into, if you look on the map where the roads tee into Willow Street, there's
Mm-hmm.
either gonna be a police car, an officer, or a barricade and an officer on those roads as well, depending on resources.
Right.
Yes.
But they will
They-
monitor if there's a space open, then they'll let another car go in there to take it.
Right.
Is there any, and I know there's no way, because I know this is the first time trying this to see if it works.
I think we did this last year.
Oh, you did?
It was done last year.
So were they able to direct people to come on up and fill in the spaces? Or I can see how people do, and they don't want to get jammed in.
It's gonna be one way. They're gonna be, entering on Wimberley
Mm-hmm.
and exiting on, by the Red Barn.
210.
Yes,
I guess what I'm asking too with that is,
Williams.
it's like when we go, I'm going to use an example, to the state fair. And there's somebody feeding us forward and saying, come on in, come on up here. We're not going to park 3 cars that could have parked 6 because you didn't leave room for anybody else to get in and out of here. Or is that we're just going to do best we can?
Have you considered doing it the other way? Because cars coming up to go into Jack Marley Park could be told that there's a space down the road here instead of going into the park.
We've discussed that. We'll be counting spaces in Jack Marley Park as well. So when people pull into Jack Marley Park for the areas that are available, instead of just pulling down there and having to, do a U-turn and come back out, we'll say, you can come on in. There's some spots here.
Well, that's my point.
It's gonna be monitored.
If the officer allowing people in to park is down where the entrance of the park is, they could know whether or not something's available down the road here marked in yellow. And instead of putting people in to go into Jack Marley to turn around. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. There's going to be officers stationed outside of Jack Marley Park at all of those TN spots.
Okay.
At,
The only thing I'm questioning, you were saying that they needed to enter on Wimberley. Wouldn't it make more sense to enter by the entrance to Jack Marley? Help me out, Madam Manager.
I don't know if it would make.
there will be. We've spoken with Mr. Williams that owns the Red Barn Restaurant. He's allowing us to use the Red Barn for parking as well, and so that entrance will go to the park when it's full. And we'll have to turn people away.
So I think the reason we're parking along the lake is to keep people from parking in yards. That's
The
not what you're
only
asking.
question I'm raising is which end you going to enter from,
From Wimberley. Do you have to go down?
and I'm questioning whether that makes sense
Okay.
because
Is the best entrance with off the highway, and then you're trying to exit, not feeding into 55, but feeding into Wimberley, which is the easiest route out. That's what Bob is questioning. It doesn't
plus
make more.
the people at the front of the park there can tell whether there's an opening and instead of allowing them to go into the park,
Mhm.
they can go into the yellow area here.
Chief Thompson's not here tonight, so I am, because he's been a part of this conversation, so I'm concerned to just take your suggestion and change it without any
I
input
think-
from
I'm-
the police department.
I think we're all going to be in favor of the closure, and I think that is just a note to get to him to say,
And
hey, do you think
give them
feed wise?
discretion is the best way to do it.
Yes. But definitely it needs to be done. And thank you for putting all that together and this info. And I think if we approve the closure, then you can get with Chief. Again, we rely upon him. And if he said, yeah, you know what, that way we could say there's no way in here, there's no parking here, and there's nothing down there. And rather than the jam up happening at the cemetery, the jam up might help to feed out the other way. But anyway, I think he will know.
We definitely will discuss it one more time. and
Great.
put our heads
Okay.
Together
Love
and
it.
just, really.
Can I go ahead and make the motion?
Yes, you may.
I'd like to make the motion for the street closure for the trunk or treat to be approved.
Okay. Is there any discussion?
Mm-mm.
No.
Okay, all in favor, please raise your right hand. And it's so ordered. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chrissy.
Okay, then we've got Jimmy Cook. He's got a right-of-way encroachment for Conterra.
I just wanted to ask the board if, going forward, if they would like for these encroachment agreements to be reviewed by staff, being Bill, Jimmy, and myself, and then have the information presented to you on consent agenda. In the time I've been here, all of these have gone to you for approval, so it is your discretion how you would like to continue.
How did we do the natural gas?
The natural gas was just one, I think, large encroachment that you were informed of the locations and the streets that were going down.
Right.
So the board approved.
How is that different from this?
Well, because you've got a different entity. This is Conterra. So,
Well, I mean, but in substance, isn't it the same kind of thing?
well, we're just showing you the direction on which they're going for this particular one. In this case, it's just like an individual drop to a building versus the natural gas was larger and wider.
Right.
So with these being smaller, if we can, like the manager mentioned, staff can take care of that in-house and just put it on your consent agenda.
That's the
Once you-
distinction I'm
That's
trying to
correct,
make.
yes, sir.
If it's a
Yes, sir.
specific drop to a building that requires more discussion or something, it needs to come to us. Otherwise, just handle it more,
As we did with Ting, when Ting was
Otherwise.
coming in, we had that
Right.
proposal in front of you, so you're all aware of where they were going and what their direction was.
and you want to explain a little bit what Contrary is?
So
Conterra.
Conterra Fiber is just another fiber provider that gives our customers plenty of options to look at, whether you choose this one, A, B, C, or D. So in this particular case, it's Conterra. And so what they're looking at doing is they came in, once they ran Conterra Fiber to one of our existing planning building there on the corner. And so they came in there. So part of the infrastructure is already in place. So right there at the clock tower, they've got what I call a little manhole, little box that they've got for junction box, so to speak. So they're going to leave the clock tower and then go underneath Depot Street and then head south on South Broad Street to get to Lillington, and then turn right on Lillington and come down and then turn, and they're going to have to go aerial once they get back to the new parking lot. So I actually reached out to the service tech and just let them know we made some changes back there, so they were aware of what we had done with the parking lot, different things like that. So once they go down, they'll get to a pole, they'll go up a pole, then they'll go aerial, to the business.
And they're providing services to Town Hall and the town of Andrew, right?
Well, Conterra is providing service to the other building and to this building as well.
What I'm saying.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, isn't that the one we're having problems with getting up with to move everything?
Well, they fixed it. I mean, it's here now. But
Only
yes,
took
it's the
6
same-
months.
It's the same company.
Correct.
Yeah, but this is for another business.
But we did meet with them on future planning sites, so they were pretty quick to react to that. And met last week with the staff member on that.
Well, sounds like we're getting wired up, so to speak.
But correct me, but future. I know we did this to here to get this to here and over there for that reason. But we would be, if Ting is providing to our government buildings for free, that would be the route. I'm assuming we would.
Except that we have a contract with Conterra that
We
is
have to fulfill
that is
unless we buy
almost
them out.
it's almost as expensive to keep it going as it is to get out of it.
But I mean, in the future
Yes, in the
buildings,
future,
when we
have-
get that, we will have
Yes.
Ting
Yes.
to
We
provide
can-
free to us for those.
We can cancel without penalty at that time. Is that the point?
we can cancel Conterra when we fulfilled our 5-year obligation.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
All right.
Okay. What kind of motion do you need? The agreement that's in the file, approval of that,
And authority for the manager to sign.
and authority for the manager to sign. Is there such a motion?
I make such a motion.
All right. That motion has been made. Any further discussion? The motion is to approve the encroachment agreement and, the related items. So, all in favor of that, please raise your right hand. Okay, it's unanimous.
Mayor, if I will, just take just a minute just to update you on the parking lot project.
Okay.
So I talked with the contractor today. Hopefully Monday, his brick mason will be there to start with the enclosures for the dumpsters there behind Napper Tandy's. So hopefully that'll be starting next week, and hopefully that project will be finished by the end of the month. One thing we're also looking at is we striped that parking lot. We have not striped any parking stalls beside Thanks a Latte. We're waiting for the 91 South Broad Street project to finish. So what we're gonna do is stripe there beside Thanks a Latte, install handicap parking there in a spot, and actually put some crosswalks there in all four corners. And I did reach out to a contractor for the corner of the parking lot right there at the depot. So you could go from Thanks a Latte across. We don't currently have a crosswalk there. And so we're looking at getting pricings on that. Once we get that, I'll share that with the manager and see if we want to proceed, just trying to clean up that corner. Then we just go put handicap striping, crosswalk striping all the way in that.
And since those are town streets, we don't have to ask permission from the state,
Yes, sir. We own them.
unlike that crosswalk that they turned down on 210.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
You
Well,
wanna
thank you
ask
about
them
that because
again?
that has been needed for some time, especially with the addition of the new businesses down there.
Right.
The fact that we're utilizing an empty lot as a parking lot, yet no way for them to get across the street, no light, that will help that immensely.
Okay. And then,
Here,
like I said,
here.
I'll just inform the manager when we get some pricing, and we can see if we can find some funds to be able to do that.
You mentioned it, and I remember the design and everything. You're talking about the brick mason. There's a concrete pad to the dumpster enclosure?
That's correct. So right now, if you've been back there, you just have the barricades around that. And so he's already poured his footers for his block wall. And so he'll go up with a deck architecture, I can't say it, brick. And so that'll be part of it. And then we'll just have the enclosures in.
Okay, I didn't see the pad, and I'm thinking,
So
well,
what he'll do is once he puts his brick up, then he'll go back and pour the concrete.
then pour it afterwards.
Yeah,
That's it.
correct.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. It'll be concrete.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think, we don't need any action on that then. Okay.
That's just an update. So sorry I didn't put that on the agenda. I apologize. So.
Anything else? While Jimmy's standing there?
Uh-oh.
Okay. You've given long and good service to this town. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. We have a closed session pursuant to GS 143-18.11A6 to discuss the personnel issue. So we will adjourn now if there's a motion to adjourn.
Can I make one comment before we adjourn, Bob? For anybody that's
Well, I guess so.
for anybody that's still maybe left online with us, I meant to do this at the beginning so we didn't lose people along the way. Just a reminder, November 7th is election day,
Right.
and I don't think that I can remember a more important election in the last 8 years in this town than this one is. And I encourage everyone to do your homework. Find your answers, get to know your people that are running, and get out and vote. Even 8 years ago, we had a major change of hands over maybe only 7 votes. And it is important. Every vote counts. And that way you will feel like that you helped make a new direction for Anger, because it is, well, you saw the projects that we have in line, and they're going on to 2006. Some of us won't be here to help see these things through. And I just encourage everyone to get out and vote and research your people, but let your vote be known in this major time that we're facing here in another month.
We'll be cheering you on from the sidelines.
I don't know about the sidelines. I may be right out there in a chair. I'm not disappearing by any means.
All right.
But yes, please mark your calendars and get over it. Lillington is open right now, I believe, for early voting, but that's the only place you can do that. Otherwise, only November 7th here in Anger, if I'm correct.
Okay. Motion that we adjourn
Go into closed session.
to go into closed session. We'll delay a few minutes to allow people to exit.